Mhuri yeZimbabwe takatarisa kuti Nelson Chamisa ane chimwe chinhu chaaisa chimwe chinhu kana imwe movement yaaisa paground. Tiri kuona zvekare vanhu vaivai madhara aya akatumwa nana Wishman Nuwe nana Tendai Biti nevamwe vanhu vatisingatauri nemazita panapa ana Carlton Wende. Tiri kuona Sengezo Shavangu futi adzoka. Sengezo Shavangu adzoka ari kutaura kuti iye ari kutopa warning kuna Nelson Chamisa kuti haungatange imwe patika because isusu kuno tiri kuziva kuti iwe uchiri president wedu, saka ataura kuti ari kuendesa Nelson Chamisa kukoti. Ndizvo zvaari kutaura panapa. So iye mhuri yeZimbabwe hatizivi kuti munozvitora sei kana kuti munofunga sei panyaya, but inyaya inobata, inyaya inorwadza kunyanya vanhu vanosapota opposition party vari panapa. Inyaya yandanguva kuti ndiko kuonesai kuti ndo zvimwe zvezvinhu zviri kuitika munyika yeZimbabwe, ndo zvinhu zviri kuitika izvozvi, hazvina kumira zvakanaka. Saka mimi tiudziwe zvamunofunga mucomment section, but panapa pari kutaurwa pachinzi Shavangu warns Nelson Chamisa cannot start another party because constitutionally he is still our president. I will go to court. Saka zvinhu zvatotishamisa izvozvo, zvinhu zvatotishamisa. That's why tauya kuti tikuonesei. Taane mamwe macomrades zvekare anenge achitaura nyaya idzodzizi dzana Nelson Chamisa paspace vataura kuti tikupei musare muchinzwa zvekare.
Agree with us. That's where it's coming from, because we are trying to avoid this situation where you feign loyalty of what we are doing, and yet you fundamentally disagree with us, waiting for an opportunity to destroy us. So we can't continue tagging you along so that you realize the opportunity to destroy us. I think that was your question.
I'm sorry, Gondias. Like the things that were said here, what is the fundamental disagreement? What is the fundamental disagreement that people were speaking about?
I was answering Titus' question that sometimes people say that when they reflect on what happened with Chabangu, and when they see signs that we fundamentally disagree, and you don't want Chamisa at all, then the other person then feels like, okay, if Chamisa is so bad to you and he can never be good to you, and probably you are a reincarnation of Chabangu in the future, it would be good for us to go a separate way so that you don't wait for this opportunity to destroy us. I did not say that there is anything that you said yourself or anyone in this space.
No, I was not talking about me. I was talking about there was a time when people were screaming, neutral, hey, this and that. So what is the fundamental disagreement there? Nobody asked those people what they agree on or disagree on. Yeah. People just came up and started making noise. And that's been a pattern. That's been a pattern. When an issue arises, people rise up and make noise and feign this amazing loyalty to Chamisa and disregard the issue that we're facing, disregard everything and pretend to be I don't know what it is. So when you say someone who fundamentally disagrees or fundamentally doesn't go with what the movement is going with, those people are obvious and their actions are obvious and you can see them and you can weed them out. But in a group like this, yeah, well, there's some that are obvious, I don't want to lie. But there's certain people who will come up and make a point, what Uncle Jed was talking about, that it's going in a certain direction and this person is making a certain point. And maybe the point is difficult to hear because truth and constructive criticism is not always pretty. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it makes you question yourself. And then that person is making that point and then someone comes up and says, form your own party. Because okay, let me just leave it.
Right.
But it's going into a new move.
Can I weigh in there? Your example is very good, the one that they've given. But now there comes a point. There comes a question. We didn't know that there was a Chabangu. We didn't know that he could scheme in the manner which he schemed, and he ended up doing whatever it is that he did. If one then comes and asks, how did Chabangu arise? Or what lessons have been learned Paningaya Chabangu? Then one is shut up going from your own political party. And in your example, you are saying would have identified that this person might end up being a Chabangu. But Chabangu grew up in an environment. Chabangu operated in an environment that made him to be or to do what he did. What lessons have been learned? It can be a question. How can a Chabangu be avoided? Because not everyone is a Chabangu, out there. But how can a Chabangu be avoided? What is it, that can be done? What can be put in place? What safeguards can be put in place to make sure that another Chabangu, does not arise? So these are questions, that people would ask. Could it, before we become so emotionally involved, in this, or we become, participative, in this? We did, the same thing. We participated in the previous one, and then Chabangu, arose. So now, can you give us the strategies, that are now there to make sure that this does not arise? And then when you say that, oh, go and form your own political party. So these are the examples of some of the things, that people, might be asking. And then instead of them being engaged in a way that makes them understand, could they look, no, we learned a lesson. This time around, this is why you are being told that we are going away for 180 days. And those 180 days, they are very crucial, because that is when we are going to, to make sure that everything is in place before we come to you again to give you the next, direction. That way, I will look forward to 180, and I'll wait to find out what is it, has been done and everything. And if I want to question again, I can question to say, thank you very much, for doing this. Thank you very much for doing this. But have you thought of this? Or have we thought of this? What we are simply doing is we are building the movement. We are shaping the movement. You're contributing to the movement. You're participating in the movement.
Uncle, I think nicely put. But if we were to take Charamba's messages, we take them with a pinch of salt. But if we take it as gospel truth, that tweet of saying, after the elections, senior leaders in the Triple C came in and said, they will take over the party. Well, maybe Makua and it, Pamwitoto Makua. But if there's some elements of truth, this thing was being planned already before it happened, way before it happened. Then when we are looking at safeguards of how we can protect this thing, guess it will still go to to personalities, to trust, just like you put on the topic there, to say, what type of people are you working with? Because maybe sometimes the elements are the actual individuals that are involved within it.
Right.
Because
I don't know if it was Sabuk Dobbs who said it. I think who said infiltration in any political organization is something that happens. My organizations are not infiltrated. But what matters most, or what becomes important, is the safeguards that you put in place to make sure that that will not happen. And it, or to make sure that you can minimize the damage that can result from that infiltration. Anonza know you Xi, Weko China. His best friend, a top general, he suspended him and is now under investigation for leaking classified nuclear information to America. That tells you the level of infiltration that can happen. But how do you then respond after those things have happened? Because we are dealing with a voluntary organization. Nobody here does a DBS of what is inside of our hearts, or what is inside of this person, to think this person is going to be a Judas in tomorrow. But there are things that people do that can point to kuti fake zvavakaitaura ningemukoma nigondiyas kuti pane mwezvo zvaunozoona this one is got a tendency ane kachabangu ndingemari uyu andimuri kuona. You can be in a position, if this is why it is important to invest in intelligence, your own intelligence as an organization, because that is one of the safeguards. You have your intelligence, people that can gather information, so that whatever it is not going to can be averted. But infiltration, it happens. Hakuna kusina infiltration. Iriko infiltration. Kana even pavainetsana vekumethodhista kuzopatsanurana kwavaita vanga mune mainfiltrators umwe aenda uko unoteerera zviri kodzoka uya uko umwe uya uko unoteerera kuti saka it is something that can never be prevented. But what matters most is how do we deal with that. So now, when Chamisa comes back in his 180 days, one of the things that people pointed out before, Kutizo, this was wrong, and we need this, to be sorted, and that becomes the starting point. He's talking about establishing mass structures. Isn't it that was something that most people were saying, we were let down because we didn't have structures. Chabangu came in because we didn't have structures. Now what that means about this movement is going to be having a structure. And it tick box. Can you are eager to want to participate? Unopiwa ka that kikuti ka confidence, but yes, now we are heading in the right direction. And then most of the times, when you say you cannot true good, how are these leaders chosen? Come on, leaders are say chi 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 chi. And then those are some of the tick boxes that people may be wanting to, to be ticking, so that they can fully participate in the organization or in the movement. Because it's a game of enticing people. Because you're coming, people are coming from a history, and that history determines my position, tomorrow. Because if I see the same thing being done over and over again, there's some madness, that is going on, in there. Because we might end up getting, the same, result. So would you want as an individual to experience that which you experienced, last year or yesteryear, given the emotional roller coaster that you went through as a result of experiencing that? So these are questions that people might be having in them. Questions that people that we are going to be interacting with